Thank you so much for anyone who's joined with it today. So, today I'm going to be talking about a relationship to self. And what that means to me is self love. When I think about the relationship to myself, self love is the first thing that comes to mind for me. It might mean something different to you or someone else, but for me, the relationship to self is the same thing as self love. So that's what I'm going to dive into today, and based on my own experience, always. My book, everything I speak about, everything that I suggest has all been from personal experience and personal research that I have done, what has worked for me, how I brought myself back from a very dark place to become the menopause queen. I actually realized that I had never really thought about self love, or in this case, the relationship to myself. For a long time, I was just trying to make it through each day. And this was in particular through my menopause years, since my book is about menopause and this is about my menopause journey. I was just getting through the day. I just wanted to get done whatever tasks that I had to do so that I could go chill, I could go relax, and then I could go to sleep. I was tired, fatigued. These are symptoms that I had during my menopause. I was overwhelmed by personal stress that left me almost feeling debilitated, really. Some days were very, very difficult to get out of bed. So fortunately, I worked from home then as well. Um, so my schedule is slightly flexible. But the worst symptom that I had was depression, and I got to a very dark place. And I scared myself a little. One day, I was having a rough time, ended up in the hospital, emerged. I was not admitted. I didn't allow myself to be admitted, but I sat there and I thought, what am I going to do about this? I am now at this place in my life. What am I going to do about it to make it better? I had tried hormone replacement therapy for a couple of years, and that was something that I decided not to continue on because this is going back 10 years or so now. My doctor had told me that the longer you are on it, the harder it is to come off. And it's just something that I didn't want to do for me personally, take for the rest of my life. There are many women who say, bring it on, let me have it, anything to make me feel better. But for me, just taking something for the rest of my life, I'm the type of person who I want to try as hard as I can to do my best with naturally what I know how to do. So whether it's changing my eating habits, moving my body, taking to space for myself, and we're going to get into that a little more in a few minutes. These were all symptoms that I had, but I also had like this numb feeling. I just was going through the motions, and the personal stress I was under at the time just amplified it all. I was living my life from out here, and it just suddenly hit me that day in the hospital that I had to start living from in here. That was the difference. So when I started to do that and work on what was going on in here, my relationship to myself, that's when things really, really started to shift. And it was pivotal. My relationship to self is self-love. How I was feeling about myself, because I felt miserable. I had gained 40 pounds. I felt depressed. I had no energy. I was fatigued. I was in my own head all the time. So how I was feeling about myself was dictating every other area of my life. And here's the thing. I was allowing it. I allowed myself to stay in this rut, to be miserable, to not take care of myself, right? To just get through the day. That's essentially how I chose to live my life during that time. And so I was like, oh, hey, wait a minute here. I have a choice. I have always had a choice. And that's a big part of my message. We all always have a choice how we think, how we act, how we speak. And when you make a shift and you do those things with love, whoa, life is so much better. So much better. And joyful and fulfilling and being a queen. That's why I call it unleashing your inner queen, because that's exactly what it feels like. I've unleashed myself, right? I let myself go. I released all this negativity, released the past, things I was holding on to. I was holding on to guilt for 20 years. I had to let that go. So it was a huge understanding of once I understood this, then I started to put the path forward. I had been a watcher of The Secret in the mid 2000s when it came out. So Rhonda Byrne. So I was familiar with the law of attraction and affirmations, and I had done all that before, and I had seen some success with it. But things had kind of become, stale. I was just kind of going through the motions. But this realization now in this moment that I was at was anew. So I started rereading the books. I bought new books by Rhonda Byrne and other people, and I started filling myself with positive energy, positive affirmations. I started listening to specific Salveggio frequencies and started meditating. I had never really meditated before. I had only journaled and written. When I started to meditate, I I was like, wow. Because if anybody who doesn't know, when you meditate, your body is in a state of calm, right? You're in a state of complete calmness and you're relaxed. And then I was able to take my mind, even though another thing I had was lack of focus. I, as hard as I could, with my eyes closed, would see myself how I wanted my life to be in my bikini, running along the beach, healthy, happy. Physiologically, just so you know, when you're in a meditative state, while your body is calm like that, that's the opportunity to heal it physically. Meditation lowers your cortisol. When your body is relaxed like that, it gives the opportunity for your cortisol to lower. Therefore, gets less stress on your body, which we're going through so much stress on our body during menopause with all the hormonal and all the changes and everything. So meditation helps to lower that stress, which helps lower the cortisol and gives you the opportunity to think clearly, act clearly, speak clearly, more clearly. These are all things that happened to me. I started to gain more energy, and then I learned what exercises to do. I was doing the wrong ones before. I was doing too much cardio. So I started lifting weights more, doing weight training and just going for walks and things like that. Gradually, actually, the weight started to come off. So I ended up losing about 20 pounds, so half of the weight. And it all boils down to, you can call it self-care, doing these things, but I call them tools. These are self-love tools. These are things that I use to evoke the self-love within myself and bring it out and share it and understand it and live it. Quite amazing, transformation to go through, because I went from a person who would think of something negatively first, and something happened, you know, anything would rise up, I'd always think about the negative part first. But now I started to look at it, things, everything, the people, situations, work, everything, with a new set of eyes, and saying, what can I appreciate about this moment right now? What can I appreciate and love about the other people in my life? My spouse, my family, my children, and of course myself. How can I look in the mirror, right? And at first I would look at it and I didn't see this person. I didn't see this hollow shell of a person looking back at me. But then as I was going through this process and doing these other things for myself, these other techniques, I was essentially manifesting. These are all manifestation techniques, right? I was manifesting my way back to health through menopause. I was manifesting away my menopause symptoms. So I started looking in the mirror, and instead of seeing this hollow shell of a woman, I started to see, and say, wow, you know what? I have the most beautiful eyes. They are the most amazing color of hazel green. My ears are pretty cool too. They're nicely shaped, all that kind of stuff. You know, my calves are getting pretty toned. Have an hourglass figure. Look at my waist. These are all little things, but the physical features, sure, yeah, I was finding these physical things about myself, and that was just the beginning. But I had to learn to love the person who I was, the person who I am, because I don't know about you, but for a long time, I lived on what other people thought about me. So I was worried about me gaining weight because I was worried about that other people were going to think of I was fat. How were other people going to deceive me or perceive me and look at me? Instead of worrying about how I thought I looked myself. Yeah, man, I'm curvy, you know. I'm in my 50s. So, I deserve to be curvy. I've earned it. But it's a big realization, and it has this ripple effect that spills into all areas of your life. And it's quite wonderful because then I became conscious of it, right? I was conscious of when I woke up in the morning, how am I going to choose this day to be? What do I want out of this day? What opportunities am I going to create for myself today? In what new way am I going to discover to love myself and others today? And also to be very grateful that I had the opportunity to awake that morning and that I was healthy and well. Because when we're hard on ourselves, that affects the way we live our lives as well. If we're down on ourselves, you can actually sit and kind of take note of that and almost watch that if you're down, if you allow yourself to feel down, and sometimes we all do, sometimes we need that day of just quiet and rest and inner thoughts, and to be able to just be with ourselves and be quiet and turn out the noise in the world around us. That's okay. That's okay to do that sometimes. That's what we need to recenter and to rejuvenate. And then when you take note of that and you do that, you can actually notice a difference and look at the people in your life. How do they behave? Are they negative people? Do they bring you down? I've even had family 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 gatherings that I have avoided because my family grew up in a very different time. So they do pretty much live from a negative space. They live in this little box, and that's where they're comfortable. And I understand that. I understand that they haven't had the same experiences and the same opportunities that I have as being the youngest of the family. During this time when I was going through, my depressive state, um, and that lasted for 5 years, by the way, and it was depleting. So I avoided family situations because I didn't want to put myself in that situation where I might be judged, where I might come home feeling bad about myself, or worse than I already did, or get in some kind of argument, with a sibling or my mother. Uh, I love my mother to death, but she's a very judgmental woman, and she's going to be 88, so I'm not going to change her. I can only change myself and how I view it. So I have learned how to cope, how to shut that out, and how to turn that around. And by just understanding that that's who she is, that's alone is a big win for me, because that means that I can know how to handle that situation. And before I go to family events now, I see myself laughing and enjoying myself. I see myself having a good time. And you know what? I do. My other 3 sisters just came to visit me last week and spent the night. And one messaged the next day and said, "Thank you so much, Lisa, for having us. This was really great. We got to do this more often." And you know what? All we did was sit there and talk and get to know each other and catch up with each other's lives. And it was really, really wonderful. We all connected so well. Uh, we all actually talked about our menopause journey and what that was like. So that was very special to me because I got to know what they went through and what age and so forth. And we were able to share what it was like for each of us. So I knew then, what things that they went through and what things that I went through, how we could, support each other and all that kind of stuff. So let's remember one thing, and that's that self-love or your relationship to yourself is not selfish. It's essential, especially during menopause, to be able to take that time for yourself. Make sure you take this time for yourself. Take the time to have a few minutes to write something, listen to something. Actually, the best time to do it, if you work outside of the house and you're like, I don't have time to do this, my day is full already, I'm already stressed, do it before you go to bed. Write, listen, affirm before you go to bed, 15 minutes before you go to bed. It is scientifically proven that when you subject the brain to positive stimuli, particularly before you go to sleep, because the subconscious mind is very powerful and it absorbs that. So it's scientifically proven that you can sleep better and wake up in a better mood. And these are things that lower your body stress and can improve your menopause symptoms, believe it or not. Okay, so it's important to understand that I have been there, and I decided to share my story because it was something that I felt was really important. I had witnessed so many women lost like I was and not know what to do. So when I discovered that I could improve my life, improve my symptoms by basically manifesting it, I was like, you know what? Okay, women need to know that they can do this. Manifestation isn't just for your everyday life. It is for your life, every aspect of your life, including this. So I know the one thing that I'm sure we can all agree on as women when we enter menopause is to not have a monthly cycle, and have to deal with all that. So that is a big plus. So that is a step in the right direction to be able to say, you know what, this is something that's good about menopause and start from there. So I've come up with 3 ways here to strengthen your relationship to yourself or to emphasize self-love. And that is first to nourish your body. When your body's going through changes, as I said earlier, we need to treat it well, feed it well, move it. The old saying, move it or lose it? Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Even if it's walking, keep your body moving as we age is so important. Osteoporosis, things like that. Speak kindly to yourself and others, right? But start with yourself. Start with yourself. Self-talk was a huge thing. Self-talk can make a huge difference. Positive self-talk can make a huge difference in your life. So instead of saying, I can't do this, say, I am stronger for this, or I am lucky to be doing this, right? Instead of, I have to do this. I am so lucky that I can walk. I am so lucky that I can get up out of bed on my own. I'm so lucky that I am healthy, right? Gratitude, luck. And here's a great thing. When you speak kindly to yourself, you naturally speak more kindly to others. Quick story. We have a friend who is religious. So she doesn't like it when people say, Jesus Christ. she's offended by that. So we learned not to say that when we were around, not that I said it, a whole lot, but you might instinctively say it. And being aware of this when we're around her, would make a conscious decision not to say that when we're around her. We actually noticed that we weren't saying it really at all anymore. And that's a good thing. That was a positive thing. So my point in that story is that we became aware, we became conscious of what we were saying. And that awareness is huge. If you can be aware of the way you think, speak, and act, that's a big win. Living in awareness. You could say I'm on a mission of positivity, but self-positivity. We want to be positive within ourselves. So thirdly, and the last thing before we wrap up here, is to take time for yourself, which is what I spoke about earlier at the beginning. And you might think it might be simple, but again, I'll reiterate, this is powerful. It's a powerful thing to take time for yourself, to take that space for yourself. And it goes beyond just saying this is self-care. There's the whole mental health aspect to it that is huge. Make sure you take a few minutes each day, whether it's listening to music, writing, journaling, meditate. I'm going to ask you now, think of one thing you can do for yourself today that's just for you. And I hope you leave it in the comments after when you're watching this. And please comment as you go along. So I'd love to see people's ideas so that we can all inspire each other. Takeaway for today, relationship to yourself, to me, is the same as self-love. And that's the foundation for everything else in your life. When you put out the energy of love, you get the energy of love back. Science, baby, science. We are all made of energy. So vibrate higher, the universe responds. And that's just science. Don't forget, we are energetic beings. We have electricity in our body. Just one last thing is I want to leave you with is that when I changed how I treated myself, I stopped surviving and started thriving. And that's why I wrote my book. Type one word in the comments that describes how you want to feel about yourself moving forward. And for me, that's always going to be self-love. Self-love first. That's just for me. So if this conversation spoke to you at all, if you like what I'm saying, then please feel free to follow me. Facebook, there's a Menopause Mindshift Self-Love community that's free to join. My website is themenopausemindshift.com. You can get in touch with me there. And I'm also starting a private paid community where we're going to do things like this, weekly virtual meetups and stuff like that. So make sure you share it with a friend who might deserve some love as well. And please remember to love yourself first every day. Thank you so much.